Well, I've got a 2003 Toyota Tarago behind me. We've had this car for a good 15 years or more, done about 390,000 on the clock, and the radiator has gone on and it started leaking out of the valve cover. So in this video, I'm hoping, having never done this before, that we'll be able to replace the radiator and the oil leak in the valve cover and get the Tarago back up and running. It's been awesome for many of our family holidays and we're looking forward to having more. You can see the oil has been leaking just out through there. I've cleaned it up, but basically it comes out onto the exhaust manifold guard and boils up there, and it's got everywhere else. I've just gone and put a degreaser through it so we can work in here and clean it up. And there is the radiator that we're replacing as well. You can see here that the radiator is quite cracked, and that's the reason we're replacing it, is it basically doesn't hold water anymore. And along with that, we'll have a look at the coolant sensor and also the water thermostat as well. This is one of Toyota's two AZ FE 2.4 litre 4-cylinder double overhead cam engines that we're going to be working on in the Tarago, but I believe also in the Camry, the Highlander out of the States, and maybe even the RAV4. It's an engine that Toyota built between 2000 and about 2006. So the first thing we're going to do is take off the air intake, which is these bolts here, and then up in the back here. And whether you can see it in there, it's pretty dark, but there's two clips. They just pop back. The other one there is, yeah, you can just see those clips in there. And then here, clip on the air intake, just pops that off. And then we'll undo these two bolts here. And before we start doing any of this, we're just going to unplug the battery so we're safe in here. It just forms around. It's got clips on this end and this end that just fit back into there, so that covers that piece for us. I think that's a 10. It's taking off the filter framing. I think these are the coils, there's 4 of them, so loosen all those off and then we'll mark them so we get them back in the right order there. Right, so we've taken the air cover off and the filter out. Now taken out all of the, I think they're coils that go in here, and all of the bolts associated with it, as well as the wire harnesses on both sides. I've still got a pipe up the back there. You can just see that we're going to try and work out how to get that off. And I think at that point we'll be ready to take the whole valve cover off. So far so good, labeling every single bolt and nut that comes out so we can put it back together, because of course we want it to run again when we're finished. go around to. Got all the bolts out now, so I've got that pipe out over the back there. Down in here you can see there's bolts in between there, and then there's another 4 up the back. It'll be much easier to get this air filter out to do this job, but it looks pretty complicated. I want to take more off than I have to, so now I've got to just address getting it out from that wiring harness there and this wiring harness here. But we've already loosened it off, so next step, take it off. Right, some argy-bargy, we've got the valve cover off. You can see here these parts of the gasket are just completely fried. That's supposed to be rubber. That's just cooked. So that's all that's going to come off. Look at how we can clean that up. But here is where our problem is. You can see that little break there, and that's exactly where the oil has been leaking out. So definitely have done an engine seal. Yeah, thankfully none of those cables at the back were connected, which is good. It's a bit of moving this harness out of the way. I'm hoping we didn't break anything doing that. There's one of these wires here, so trust we're okay on that front. And yeah, there you go, engine cover off. So I'm going to pull all this gasket out now. It's absolutely stuffed, baked on up the back there. It's pretty ugly. Everything feels very dirty in here. I'll get in and try and clean it a bit. It's 390,000 Ks, you gotta expect that things are going to be a bit rough. There we go, there's our broken gasket. So I feel good that if we can put a new one of those in, should have that problem solved. And then we just need to sort out the cooling. Now we're going to focus on the radiator. So we need to get these mounts out, we'll get the lid off. We'll have to take off the intake and return hoses. There are some just down there, I don't know whether you can see it, but there they are. We'll have to take off those hoses too for the power steering, and then there'll be a couple of wiring relays. I'm going to take the whole fan component out with the radiator, and then we'll take this fan system off and put it onto the new radiator. Okay, so we're about ready to take the radiator out. We've taken the 2 hoses off here. Found they were pretty tough, so a bit of WD-40 and a little screwdriver just to help break that seal. The other thing to be aware of is the whole wiring harness that goes up to this relay here. Now that relay normally sits over here, but I've taken it off right now. But the whole wiring harness needs to come off if you want to take the fans out with the radiator. There's all of these little clips here, and you can see there that you need to just pop a screwdriver in, a small little flathead screwdriver in to pop them off. So there's one there, another one there, there's a main one here, and then you can see down there there's another one going into the fan on that side, and another one going into the fan on that side. I've also taken off the hose here that goes through to the engine, and in there, we haven't got it out yet, but in there will be the thermostat, so we need to have a look at that as well. So last thing to do to take the radiator out now is right down there is the coolant sensor. I'm going to see if I can't take the radiator about halfway up to get my hand in there. That'll save me having to take all of this bash plate down here off the bottom to get in. Even though I can get my hand down there, I just can't quite work out how to get down into there and see that piece. So we've got the fan assembly and the radiator out. I didn't actually drain the radiator before we took it out. That's mainly because this one is split, and so it hasn't been holding water anyway, but there was a little bit down there, but not too big a deal. Otherwise it's all come out cleanly. We'll reuse the fans, and you can see that this is where the radiator is completely cracked right along that area, holding no pressure at all. And so that's what we're going to replace. Thermostat, so that's our next job, is to take that out and have a look at how good that is, and I think we'll replace that as well. There we go. Nice and clean and out. There's the whole thing in a bit of scale build up on that side. But I think it's going to be safer just to replace the whole unit. It's looking pretty rubbish. Well, look at that. Down here, there we go. Got the thermostat out from down there. There was no gasket between the layers. The new one comes with that, so we'll put that in. That's directly into the engine, and then up here is the pipe that fits in, and you can see there's a lot of rubbish down in there, so I'm going to give that a good flush. We're now at the point where we've got the radiator out, we've got the engine valve cover off that, so let's get started on what we've got to do to replace the engine mount. This engine mount out, so it goes right up into the back there, so we've got one nut up there that we need to get going, and one here, and then we'll have to wiggle that thing out. I'm trying to not have to touch that little oil container there, so I'm going to try and use ring spanners in here instead of sockets. I thought I could get away with not having to take this off here, but that bolt there simply will not come out without removing it. So there seems to be a little clip system down in here, so I'm going to take a look at that, see if we can't lift this off. So we've taken the bolt out of there, and we've taken the bolt out of there. Now we need to be able to just work that out from here, like so, and we've got it out. You can see here where the thing's completely knackered. But look at that, just fell out. So we went to a place called Spares Box, and here we are, we've got all our pieces. So we've got our Kelpro right hand engine mount, so we're going to put that in a minute. so that'd be good. Stop the engine rattling, which would be great. We've got our radiator hoses, top and bottom. They're Mackay hoses. We've got our coolant sensor from Goss and our gates thermostat. So we're all good with the parts, and we've also got our valve cover seal as well. So we've got our new engine mount. It's going to go on the right hand side. Power steering out of the way. I'm going to have to grab the exhaust and pull that over until we can get that in right. And we've got our valve cover seal as well, so it fits in the 4 coils right through here where the screws go, and then this bends out around the overall cover. So we're out with the old and we're in with the new. Now this has little lugs all the way around. I don't know whether you can see that, but they just sit in there, just fitted. Well, we just had an absolutely crazy situation where the hose clamp off the vacuum line at the back of the valve cover got stuck when I was putting the valve cover on, and as I pulled the valve cover off, it took the hose clamp with it, and I just heard this clink, and it sounded like it went straight into the engine around the cams. And so I've spent all of last night and today looking for it, bought some magnetic flexible tools, and I'm relieved to say that after probably about 10 hours of sticking fingers in all the different slots and wires to understand the engine, we got it back. Here it is, all for this little thing. But obviously we didn't want that running around in the engine while we're going. So now it's out, we're all good to get the valve cover back on and continue with the work to put the cooling system back together. So let's get on with it. So it's over in the back there, around here, that I thought the the little hose clamp had gone down, but actually it went right down over the back here, and I found it down in there with the magnetic tool. It's fairly sizable, so I was expecting that if it was in there, I'd be able to see it pretty well, but very happy we've got it now, and we're going to get on with putting the valve cover on. I'm just checking the gasket over again since we had a failed attempt to get it on the first time. I've just noticed there's just this little section right here, a little bit rough, but it's not split or anything, so I think we're going to be okay. Anyway, it's the only gasket I've got, so we're going to go with it. Right, let's put the cover on. Right, well, that's how it should have gone the first time. Okay, so we've successfully got the head sitting there nice and flush now, back and front, and all the bolts looked in pretty good condition, so what I've done is then marked every bolt. So this is 7, 8, 9 and 10 that run along the back, and I've done that for every bolt that we've taken out of the car, given it a mark here, CV being the cover for the valves, and wiring harnesses and all of that sort of stuff. So as I put the engine back together, I know exactly where every bolt went, just in case those bolts are really specific. And also, just because it's been over a week that I've been doing this to necessarily remember where every one of them goes. So we're going to start putting in the back ones and then the front, and then we'll move through the tightening process. Also went down the local auto shop today and picked up one of these magnetic flexible grabbers. You can see it just attached there. It's quite good actually, attaches to just about anything. Of course it's got to be metal. It's the same thing that I just managed to save the hose clip with, and any bolts that end up down over the back there, we'll be able to get them out with this, but we're going to be careful enough to hopefully not have that happen. The other must-have tool for putting this valve cover on is a torque wrench. All of these nuts and bolts need to be torqued up to 11 Newton meters for the 2AZFE engine. So like most of the other tools, got online, got myself a torque wrench. Just release it here, and then that allows you to move here. You can see all of the numbers on the front, both in Newton meters, which is what we're looking at there. And if we turn around in centimeters per kilo, and you just adjust the wrench to where you need it. So you can see the 11, I'm on that now. And then I just lock that in at the base, and we're ready to go. And you'll see it when I use it, but basically the head clicks. I'm trying to get it to do it. It's probably a bit strong, but it'll click once it gets to the right amount of torque, and that's how you know not to tighten beyond it. So new addition to the toolkit, takes a basically a 1/4 inch socket. There's no little lock, unfortunately, so you've got to be careful you don't lose these down the back of the engine. But yeah, let's get on with that, and we'll torque this up. There is a pattern for torquing these up that goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So basically it torques up nice and balanced and consistent. That way you don't get any situation where any of these could be caught and don't go down properly. And so it makes it nice and level. Alright, so we're going to get started here with our torque wrench. Just going to go finger tight, and then I'll come back around. Alright, we're back on nice and tight. We've got the valve cover back on, and we were just putting the vacuum hose back on, and this is the risk anytime you do work on an old car. Hose is split. You can see it split right through there. So we're going to have to replace that. It's also cracked the other end that we didn't even touch. It looks to be quite a specific hose, so I don't think I can do that out of just any bit of hose. So I have to go and find that part number and order that in as well. Hopefully we don't have too many more of those. Alright, well, we'll have to wait for that hose to come in. The meantime, we can put the starter coils in. So let's bring them in first. Alright, next step is we want to put the thermostat in. So the thermostat's set to go off at 82 degrees. Basically the coil heats, and then this little thing pops down like that. It's just rubber seal around it, goes in that way, and then we'll put the water pipe on after that. Well, we're all ready to go with putting the radiator back in. First footing down there, the other one there. We've just done a flush of the radiator, brand new, nothing came out. Just want to make sure there are no metal filings or anything. So next step is to put them in and then secure it to the front here and wire up the fan switch sensor. First thing we need to do is get this whole fan assembly off, but we're going to try and reuse these. So let's see if we can't just pop those off. Yeah, they come off nice and easy, and we'll use those mounts straight back into the new radiator. So I'll just put them aside. The next thing we need to do is take these power steering hydraulic hoses off. So alright, good. Got those hoses off, so put them aside. We'll give them a clean up because we're going to reuse those. What I'm going to do is pop all of these bolts here. Let's see, are they 10s? Yeah, they are. So I'm just going to run around and pop all that. That'll take the whole fan assembly off. Be able to, with all those screws out, just take the whole fan assembly off like that. Okay, so we've taken the fan assembly off and cleaned that, and now get the new radiator out. So brand new. So let's shrink wrap. Basically went online with the dimensions and the model and got a radiator that was identical at a very good price. I think we paid just under $110 shipped to the door for this one, so very good. Overall, I reckon we'll probably do this whole maintenance upgrade for $250, not including all of the labour, obviously, doing all that myself. Rightio, let's get into it. So we've just taken the new radiator out, and while it's the same width on the bottom, it's probably only half as thick as the original one, but it is the replacement model. So anyway, we'll go with that. We're just going to put our fittings on here. These are just straight screw-on fittings. So before you put the fan on, you've got all these little square nuts, and they just go up in there like that. So we're going to do that in all the places. Okay, so we've got the power steering hose connectors in. Now we're just going to lay the fan assembly over the top in the same way we took the other one off. And just a matter of bolting that on. Alright, time to put the hoses back on. So I started out this journey of fixing up the old Tarago with pretty much no mechanical knowledge. I hadn't taken the radiator out when I ordered the new one. I'd just done some rough measurements. One thing you want to check though, lots of the cheap radiators, and that's what I went for, $100 radiator. That's what made this whole thing possible in the first place. The core width is quite different. A genuine radiator, about 25 to 26 mil. All of the cheaper radiators, all the same width and height, but only 16 mil. So quite a bit thinner. So something just to watch out for. Spend an extra 50, 60 bucks and you'll get that full 25 mil thickness, as was the case with the original radiators. So I've ordered a new coolant sensor to go into the radiator, but when the part arrived, and I didn't have it out beforehand, it turns out that I actually bought the temp sensor for the engine, and you can see here that it is quite a bit smaller. I'll show you what the actual one is. The plug is completely different as well in that sense. This is what actually came out of the engine. You can see it's got an O-ring on it. That's a 19 mil nut, and the connector is quite different. So if I put the two together, you can see that they're nothing alike. This one $18, this one about $80, and difficult to get in country at the moment, particularly as a Toyota genuine part. You can get them as a aftermarket. So what this does is it sits inside the radiator. When the water gets to about 90 degrees in temperature, it closes the circuit and turns the fans on. And so what I've done today is put this into a pot of water. I've had a multimeter set to ohms and I've been checking that the circuit opens and closes. Now it seems to close in terms of switch the fans on a little bit over 90 degrees, which is what it's set at, probably closer to 95, but it is working. And it does open the circuit again or turn the fans off when it gets down below about 80. So I'm thinking I'll put it into the new radiator because that there fits, of course, and we'll see how we go, and if need be we can replace this one part without having to do all of the engine work we've been doing. So now we've got the plug out, we've just put the fan switch in here, and just simply a case of tightening that up. It's got a good seal on it, we're not getting any leaking out of there. Before we put the radiator in, we're going to put the lower hose on. We've taken the old one off here, bought a new one. This is Mackay Automotive. What I have noticed about these though is that they do appear to be just a little bit shorter. So we'll see how we go in the car. This one's a bit longer, the other one's a little bit shorter. And slip the hose on down here. Okay, got the fan sensor switch in, just confirm that they're sitting in. Right, now got our lower radiator hose on there, all the way down back of the engine. Radiator's on with its stabilizers there. Top hose is in. Next piece is the relay box. So relays back in place, tested those earlier, they were all good. We've connected in all the cabling down here and all the clip cabling right down into fans in there, so we're all good to go with the radiator. We've got our replacement ventilation hose from Toyota today. So this goes right down in the back here, not the easiest place to get to. Let's see if we can't feel our way around. There it is. Never expected to change this hose out, so I've just tied some string around the pliers because pretty much working in an area I can't see, and if I lose the pliers down the back, I want to be able to get in there and get them out. All right, hold on. Okay, well, air filter now fully in, all of that's done, all bolts accounted for. You can see there's still the bolts for the exhaust manifold, but I'm going to leave that off because I want to start the engine, see if we've got any leaks. Right, we've finished all the repair work, batteries back in, put in our coolant and just bled the system. We pretty much did that by pumping the lower and upper hose because I couldn't find any bleeder on this, just making sure all the air was out of the system. The fans still aren't turning over. Not sure whether that's to do with electrical charge in the wire or what I noticed with that fan switch that's thermo activated was the water needed to be pretty much near boiling. It's supposed to be 90 degrees, but the water was boiling for that, so I may still need to replace that bit, but we'll turn it over and let's just pop our lid on and let's turn it over and see how it goes. Sounds pretty good. We've got the heater on at the moment. That's just to bleed the air right out of the heating system because it uses the same hot water coming through the radiator. Good news is that the leak that we had there, you can see the remnants of it no more leaking, so that seal is holding nicely. When I first started it, we had a bit of smoking, but I think that was just residual oil from working around it. Now it's looking pretty good, so we're pretty much ready to take it for a run, and hopefully we've got it all sorted. We are a little over 10,000 kilometres since we did all of the repair work. You can see the radiator still in place, all the hosing, no oil on the manifold cover, and more importantly, no oil coming out of the valve cover. So the repairs that we have done have held for, like I said, just over 10,000 kilometres. We've now driven the car at hundreds of kilometres in a single go, which we certainly couldn't do before. So effectively all of those fixes have fixed our Tarago, which has been awesome. We are now a touch over 400,000 since we did all the work on the engine, and even now I've just come back from roughly 100 kilometre round trip, and you can see that with the new radiator in, our measure sits in about the right place, halfway in between, where previously we used to be right up on the hot end and smoking out of the radiator and engine bay, but all resolved. So well worth doing the repair work, and it's certainly given us at least another year or two already of life in the Tarago.